Good afternoon, dear colleagues. As you may know, early this morning, Azeri unleashed military action along the entire length of the line of contact with Artsakh. In response, the government of the Republic of Armenia has taken the decision to declare martial law in the Republic of Armenia under Article 47, Part 1 of the Rules of Procedure of the National Assembly. In the event of martial law, ex officio, extraordinary session of the Parliament shall be convened. Part 2 of the same article prescribes that if within 4 hours from the publication of the resolution of the government on the martial law does not convene enough quorum for the session of the Parliament, the session proceeds without the necessary quorum. So prepare for registration, please.
$115
MPs have signed up. Therefore, the quorum is in place. Let's proceed. The keynote will be delivered by the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, Mr. Nikol Pashinyan. Please take the lectern. Honorable Chair of the National Assembly, distinguished members of the Parliament, it is common knowledge that this morning around 7:10 a.m. the armed forces of Azerbaijan undertook large-scale offensive in the direction of the defense armies of Artsakh positions, preceded by artillery fire and shelling, after which heavy machines have advanced, targeting the defense army's positions along the entire length of the line of contact. Essentially, this is an attempt by Azerbaijan to resolve the issue of Artsakh-Karabakh through military means and to occupy Nagorno-Karabakh. This is an act of obvious aggression, considering the fact that the military political situation that came about may involve the immediate threat of encroachment over the border of the Republic of Armenia. The government of the Republic of Armenia has announced martial law and general mobilization. For your information, at this point in time, de facto, a partial mobilization is underway as we speak, but we are on standby to respond as necessary to unfolding situation. For your information as well, at this point in time, the Defense Army of Artsakh, along the entire length of the line of contact, in particular at the northern parts and northeastern and southeastern segments of the line of contact, is now engaged in combat. The situation is very tense. I understand that everyone is interested in more detailed information. Unfortunately, we do have casualties. Moreover, since from scratch they have targeted also civilian infrastructure, we also have casualties not only among the military servicemen, but also among the civilian population. They have also struck the capital of Artsakh, Stepanakert, and other settlements. The Defense Army is implementing the tasks that it has been assigned with to hold the advancement of Azerbaijan and the Azeri aggression. At this point in time, the situation is fluid. It unfolds as we speak, and our military report that their assessment of the situation is as follows. The situation is tense, but so far, to come up with a bird's eye view, it would be still premature. We have to acknowledge, I believe, that in what happened, essentially, strategically, there was nothing unexpected. One may ask why. The reason is that, essentially, here's the context of and the background of this eventuality. Our nation did face and continues to face and will face a dilemma. Either, essentially, to let go of the rights of the people of Artsakh or face the war. I would like us to clearly acknowledge that throughout this period, the position of Azerbaijan has essentially been as follows. In the negotiating process for many years, Azerbaijan has consistently been pushing for the following position. Either we abandon the rights of the people of Artsakh, the rights of the Armenian population of Artsakh, the right to self-determination, or alternatively, we face a war. And this is the context that the conflict unfolds in currently. The Republic of Armenia, the Armenian people, I believe, have to be steadfast in their position, standing by the rights of the people of Artsakh and the protection of the rights of the Armenian nation in general. This is not an exaggeration. The millennia-long fight for survival, this is the umpteenth and maybe the most important milestone in this struggle. We have to answer a simple question. Do we have the potential to protect the right to existence of this nation? Or do we lack such a potential? Do we have the determination, the willpower, notwithstanding every estimate, notwithstanding the power balance, to protect and defend the right of the Armenian nation to exist on its historical motherland? For many centuries and millennia, the powers to be that you're well aware of, hundreds of years, and before them other powers to be that had been tried to contest. Dear MPs, dear compatriots, this is the decisive moment in time. We have today to be strong and stand strong at the back of Artsakh, be steadfast and stand by our armed forces. We have to prove today that our right to live is something that we have enough willpower and resolution and determination to protect. The will and determination are axial in this sense. The will and determination are of paramount importance. The entire Armenian nation has to consolidate in defending Artsakh. The entire Armenian nation has to consolidate around our identity, our history, our motherland, our future, and our today. We shall overcome. We are bound to overcome and triumph. And there is one and only precondition for that. We have to pledge and commit ourselves not to yield a single millimeter of our history, of our nation, of our Artsakh, of our future, our identity, and our value. Long live the Republic of Artsakh, long live the Republic of Armenia, long live the Armenian diaspora, and long live the glorious Armenian army that shall defend the right of Armenian nation to live, to triumph, and to develop. We are united. We must persevere and triumph. There are no private soldiers, generals, MPs. We are all soldiers to this nation today. Even local, maybe not even local failures should not disillusion or depress us. We should stand steadfast on our foothold and defend this sacred, hallowed land and our right to live on it. I have not come here today to state as the Supreme Military Commander what is it that our armed forces are ready for. Our generals. I came today to tell you what I am ready for. I'm ready to sacrifice myself and perish in the name of our motherland. The Armenian nation has never been put to its knees and shall never be. The Armenian nation, with its strong spine and clear mind, shall stick to this land. When we say that we're all soldiers, when we upload this statement, there's one message to be heard. Whether a greenhorn or a senior citizen, a female or a male, an official or an unemployed person, there is only one message that we all have to convey to each other and the rest of the world. We have to look into each other's eyes and say, we are ready and willing to put our lives in the name of our motherland. We shall not yield a single millimeter of our motherland. We shall not sacrifice our rights. We have to triumph because there is no, we do not consider the alternative of surrendering. The Armenian nation has to exist in eternity. Artsakh shall live, and Artsakh shall enjoy self-determination, be independent, powerful and proud as it has been and is today. And today, our assembly, our session today is a call to unity, determination and victory. Get ready for victory, devotion, sacrifice, because this is a decisive moment. and we are united as never before. Long live freedom, long live the Republic of Armenia, long live the Republic of Artsakh, and long live us and our children who will be living in free and happy Armenia, free and happy Artsakh. Glory to the Armenian army and its soldiers. Thank you.
Dear members of parliament, you may now pose your questions to the Prime Minister. Registration for questions. Tigran Urikhanyan. Thank you. As a seasoned politician and an opposition MP, I want to single out that there cannot, of course, be any other conversation about any other topic. I have no question on my behalf and on behalf, I'm sure, of all those who are here in the parliament and our fellow Armenians to convey one message. Yes, today there is no such thing as status, calling, rank, position, title, or order. There is one image, and that image is the image of an Armenian, a citizen of the Republic of Armenia, a citizen of the Republic of Artsakh, and a human being who must acknowledge one fact. Azerbaijan killing women, the elderly and children cannot put forth preconditions that can guide the resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. The world must accept this, and this moment should truly become a decisive moment. This should be a crossroads leading to one of two paths. One, to closure of this issue, and complete freedom and, of course, recognition of the Republic of Artsakh. So with all of our internal disagreements and issues, we can have no image but that of a united nation. Glory to the Armenian army and respect to the memory of those who fall. We are ready to serve. Thank you, Mr. Urikhanyan. You highlighted an important point. I would like to clarify and state this clearly. The context of what is happening should be very clear. And we have to acknowledge that persistently and continuously the condition put forth to Armenia has been to concede at least the security zone without any preconditions, without any clarification of the status, let alone the fact that Azerbaijan has very clearly said, including in its public statements, that Azerbaijan is not ready to accept any status of Nagorno-Karabakh that would be the same or slightly higher than that of the autonomous province of Nagorno-Karabakh. Let us all be very clear now about this, because I know there will be questions and there will be interpolations as to whether one could have avoided. What is it that we could have done to avoid this situation? This is a very important and subtle nuance. The only thing we would or could have done was to agree that Artsakh was the same as the autonomous province of Nagorno-Karabakh. If not autonomous province, then an autonomous province with slightly more authority, slightly more perhaps authority. If we agree to this, we can right now stop everything. I would like the Armenian parliament to acknowledge, and I'm asking a direct question, because I'm saying this is of interest to everyone. This is what's discussed. Do we agree to such a solution? If we do, we can have a solution right today. I had no doubt he would say that. I had no doubt that such would be our collective position. In this audience, by the way, often in the Q&A, maybe not so openly, but we've had this conversation before. With the subtleties in mind, I have not spoken so openly about this. But I would like to say that there's a very important conclusion. Even if we were to agree, or had we agreed to such a status, would that safeguard security? Would that guarantee security to our people? Or at any stage, 10 years back, 15 years back, 20 years back, 25 years back, had we secured this, would that have secured our peace and development? To obtain the answer to this question, look broadly at the region. Just take a simple look at what's happening in the region, because this is a key question. Is it possible that we have not been flexible enough, wise enough? The answer to this question lies in the events which are happening in the broader region, and we need to find the resource. Where? Where did we find it during the Sardarapat battle? That's our choice, and that's the situation. Thank you. No remarks, I guess. Edmond Marokyan, please. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I think now is the time to discuss what we do right now, rather than what we would have done for this not to happen. So let's talk about what we do now. We have not recognized the independence of the Republic of Artsakh for one reason. There were talks, negotiations, and we were saying that if we recognize the independence of Artsakh, we would fail the negotiations, then that would be followed by war, by fighting, large-scale hostilities. They would attack Artsakh, they would attack the Republic of Armenia, we would engage in a full-scale war. Well, there are no negotiations right now. The negotiations, it's pointless to talk about negotiations now. There's a full-scale war happening. It's been unleashed. Is recognition of the independence of the Republic of Artsakh in our agenda, with all of its consequences, which will be followed by a referendum in Artsakh, and Artsakh will join the Republic of Armenia. And we will close this topic for good. There's a grand war. There's a big war. Let's speak openly. So we are speaking openly. Is this in our agenda now? Are we going to do it or not? Thank you. Mr. Marokyan, your question, I will divide your question into two parts. You mentioned a few actions, recognition and the after recognition. I will not talk about the after, because I don't think that would be right. As to your direct question, is this in our agenda? Yes, as it was in our agenda. It is in our agenda. It was and it is in our agenda. The second question, are we going to do it? Are we doing it or not? We also after your public question, need to very seriously discuss this. We will need to very seriously consider that. And in practice, now, as a result of this question and answer, we might actually even start a public discussion. We're considering all possibilities, all eventual scenarios of how the situation could unfold. And by and large, you framed the scope of the questions. Mr. Marukyan, would you like to have remarks? Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I remember that during the April war, we had in the agenda the idea of a military political alliance between Armenia and Artsakh, which was never done. We had in our arsenal the option of recognizing Artsakh. Whatever we could have lost in terms of a full war, it's what we are in. We find ourselves. If that was the risk we were running, it is already happening. And I urge to start a wide-scale discussion in Armenia of the possibility of recognizing Artsakh. Yes, and also for the military political alliance. It has been in our agenda, and now from our agenda it is moving to our discussions table, which should be put on the table and discussed, and we should discuss it with the understanding that we don't have any differences in emotions. We need to sit down and understand our actions. Do we take that action or do we not? If we take that action, what are the arguments? Weigh the arguments. If we do it, what are the arguments for? If we don't, what are the arguments con? To weigh the arguments. Besides the weighing, to decide whether we influence the scale or not, and to what extent we do influence it if we do. Thank you, Sofia Ovsepian. Thank you. Mr. Pashinyan, I have two questions, and Mr. Marukyan already asked my first question, and I think the answer was complete. My second question is this. Mostly from the diaspora and from Russia, Armenians are assembling to travel to Armenia and to take part in this fight for our homeland, for the defense of our homeland, to live for the Republic of Armenia. Are steps being taken to transport our fellow Armenians to our homeland to support us in the war? Well, you see, unfortunately, that there are problems of transportation and communication due to COVID-19, but as I said, we need to use the full potential of the Armenians, including the diaspora. I would like us to be able to clearly justify to the international community, and I hope there is no doubt about this, as to who went on the offensive. And this information should be very clearly delivered to the international community, very clearly. All of us, the parliamentary forces, the extra-parliamentary forces, non-governmental organizations, individuals, diaspora organizations, diaspora individuals, should use the social media to convey this information. Secondly, the Azerbaijani armed forces have been striking the civilian population. The next message is that this process is obviously encouraged by Turkey, and the international community has to engage decisively to contain Turkey's further actions of destabilization. This is a key test, a challenge for our pan-Armenian potential as well. To what extent shall we be able to engage the pan-Armenian potential for the pursuit of our goals and our interests? Before coming to Armenia, I think we need to start with this. Thank you. Response by Mrs. Ovsepian. Thank you. The diaspora is working very closely on disseminating information, and now they are thinking about returning to Armenia to fulfill their duty to homelands, so that as soon as arrangements have been made, please let them know. Thank you. Ani Samsonyan. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. A full-scale offensive was unleashed this morning, and before this session, a war has been unfolding. And the Azerbaijani propaganda machine are working and doing their best to present this whole picture from their perspective. I think many thousands of citizens are watching this session, and it's the best time and the best opportunity to take stock of the losses for our knowledge, the losses of the opponent, to take stock of our losses and to see how we can move forward. After declaring the martial law, what are the subsequent restrictions so that citizens know what is expected of them other than the general mobilization which has been declared? The decision on the legal mode of the martial law has been published, and that decision sets it out. There's really not much more than that. The mobilization has started. Although a general mobilization has been declared, de facto a partial mobilization is underway. As to losses, we have losses, significant losses. And the opponent has losses, and very significant losses. And right now, intense fighting is underway. And as the situation is unfolding, evolving, at any point in time, any statement might turn out to be not right. So my appeal is to follow the Armenian Unified Information Portal of the Armed Forces and the information from that portal, and that should be our guidance.
Thank you. Do we have any information with respect to whether to expect attacks along other fronts? Are we getting ready for that? Is there any preparation for that? Thank you. Well, you know what? The martial law is declared in conditions that are stipulated by the Constitution and the law when there is a real likelihood of such attacks. And that's our assessment of the situation. Such a danger exists. But if I tell you about the vectors that we expect, that would divulge the intelligence that we have, and that would undermine the whole meaning of such intelligence data. So with your permission, I will refrain from expanding on that, with an understanding that the situation is extremely tense and therefore unpredictable. Georg Gorgisyan. Thank you. It's rather a suggestion than a question. Don't you think, Mr. Prime Minister, that there is a need to continue with this session in camera, because there are several issues that may not be subject to public disclosure, and the National Assembly may benefit from such. Frankly speaking, we considered that possibility, whether to make it public or in camera this session, but I believe it's very important for at least this session today to be public, so that we share with our nation the full volume of information that we possess now. But as need be, we are ready and willing to also initiate in-camera hearings, not necessarily holding a session, plenary one. If there is no need for the National Assembly to come up with a decision or ruling, we could just come together and discuss whatever issue we might consider worth it in camera, so we may be able to share more openly some information. Would you like to respond? Thank you. I think there is a need for such a session. The National Assembly as an institution must be on top of the information. So please try to organize it ASAP. Yes, we may organize that. Perhaps the representatives of the government may be summoned and answer your questions, and I may as well. Arman Babajanyan. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. The foreign ambassadors that are accredited in this country, have you met them, or do you plan to meet them, in particular with the OSCE participant countries' ambassadors? And as an interim solution, before that public discussion that you referred to a while ago on recognizing Artsakh and concluding, are we considering the conclusion of a mutual military assistance treaty with Artsakh or not, to reaffirm and confirm the relations between Armenia and Artsakh, enshrining it in such a treaty? Thank you. Essentially, a similar question has already been asked, and I responded that we should include in our discussion agenda all possibilities and settle on the ones that would be maximally effective. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is not here exactly for that reason, because he is maintaining very active contacts with the representatives of the international community, including the ambassadors accrediting to Armenia, as well as non-resident ones. Mr. Prime Minister, since there has been attempts of encroachments of the borders of Armenia, our colleagues in the Collective Security Treaty Organization, have they been notified or alerted to this effect? And is there any work underway to solicit their adequate response or at least statements? Yes, we've been exchanging information, including, yes, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs is holding telephone conversations, so do I, and our partners are being shared information about the processes underway as to what's happening. I fully agree that we have to utilize the full potential to disseminate accurate information as to what's happening, who has attacked, why, what are the activities underway, and what's most important, you know what, we have to refresh the background information about the Artsakh-Karabakh issue. In many places they have already forgotten what's this all about in general. This is being presented as a territorial conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which is very detrimental for us. We have to explain that this is the struggle of a nation for the right to live, as simple as that. And we're talking about the Armenians in Artsakh. Next question, Taguhi Tovmasyan. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. There was a reference here to the international response and the attitudes of our international partners. I would like to know whether we have undertaken any activity in order for this military crime unleashed by Azerbaijan to be moved on to the international law plane. There have been several international treaties violated, peaceful population has suffered, and have we taken any actions to move it to the legal domain? Yes, we have, along several dimensions. Our specialists are working on this as we speak. The staff of the Prime Minister does, as well as others, and there will be measures taken along these lines. Taron Simonian, next question. You remove your question. Ivan Adomotyan, you remove as well. Arkady Khachaturian is the next. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Most of the questions belong more to an in-camera session, so I would simply request you to respond in as much as you deem possible. It is unambiguous that the prerequisite for success is the staunch unity of the Armenian nation, consolidation of the people, the strong backing by the nation. I do not doubt for a single second that the army will accomplish its tasks very well. It's for us to be able to triumph also on the diplomatic front. What are the responses that we already have from our main partners and the international community in general, other than what's available in the media? Do we have any updates on that may be published? And what can we say about the economic, financial, and other capacity mobilization, proper supplies of material, food, and whatever else would be necessary? Are measures being taken along all these lines, or are we just going to start developing these measures? Thank you. This morning, the Security Council held its extraordinary session, and instructions have been issued, including along the economic lines that you just mentioned, in order for us to ensure natural operation of our country and take care of the logistical strong support for the army. We have to acknowledge that both when it comes to economics, psychological aspects, information aspects, we still have certain things to do. The international community essentially has already begun to respond. As to what this response is, mostly the positions are neutral, with the exception of Turkey's response, which is ostensibly adding tension to the situation with its aspirations to get involved in the developments, if not already getting involved in it. So we should also share this information with the rest of the world, with the international community, presenting it in the accurate way as to what's transpiring, especially in the larger regional context. Thank you. Would you like Mr. Khajajan to respond? Vahe Enfiajan would be the next. Thank you, dear colleagues, my beloved compatriots. I've signed up in the format of the Q&A, but at this point, I think questions would be redundant, and since there is a limit on statements, I simply would like to share with some ideas with you. The situation is pivotal, decisive, and everyone in Armenia, in Artsakh and the diaspora, follow closely our actions. The time has come for us to be more than unified, consolidated, organized, against these actions unleashed against our statehood, the Republic of Artsakh, the Republic of Armenia. The enemy has to understand that they're going to be excruciatingly crushed, and we should not yield anything in this respect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Enfiajian. We will be required to show very resilient will, and I'm sure we have that will, perseverance, determination, and the fighting is underway. The hostilities are ongoing. We need to maintain that determination and commitment, irrespective of the short-term developments. There's large-scale, very large-scale fighting. We need to understand this. Is not a simple situation. This is not a film where there's going to be a happy end. We need to secure that happy end. We need to secure it by stepping through the fire, stepping over the swords, stepping through the impossible, stepping through despair, because such is the path to victory. All other paths are about postponing and postponing and postponing a little bit more and a little bit more and maneuvering a little bit more and then maneuvering again. We have to stand up and defend ourselves and defend our rights, not being destructive, not being maniacal, not being inadequate, not being inappropriate, not losing, not losing our responsibility as a member of the international community with rights and obligations. I would like us to acknowledge this very clearly and very correctly. This is something we have to acknowledge very correctly. I understand this is the last question. We have to acknowledge something else. There's no defeat until you capitulate. There's no defeat until you recognize yourself a loser. There's no victory that is firstly not born in your mind and in your soul. There's no victory that is first not born in each individual in our collective conscience. Let's agree. No matter what happens, we will never recognize ourselves having lost. No matter what happens, we will not stop walking. We will not stop stepping. We will not stop proceeding. We will not stop fighting for our national triumph, for the triumph of Armenia, for the triumph of Artsakh, for the triumph of the Armenian people. For Montes' triumph, for Vazgen Sargsyan's triumph, for Movses Gorgisyan's triumph, for Jivan Abrahamian's triumph. We have living heroes among us. For Ruben Sanamyan's victory and triumph, for the triumph of the heroic martyrs of the Four-Day War in April. Let's make a deal. We shall never again, no matter what happens, even if everyone thinks we have lost irreversibly and for good, we shall never admit defeat. We shall never stop our procession towards victory for the sake of the victory of justice and truth, and for the sake of the victory of the future of fairness and lawfulness. If this is what we do, we shall be triumphant. I guarantee this to all of you. Thank you. Dear colleagues, according to the bylaws of the Parliament, Article 47, Paragraph 3, Subparagraph 3, during the debate, statements may be made only by two representatives of each faction. The factions have registered for statements, so let us engage in the deliberation. Pride Armenia's Daron Simonyan is the first to be invited to the lectern.
Dear compatriots, for millennia in the Armenian households, the Armenian mothers have sang the lullaby, "Wake up, my son," summoning the birds of We've had many such days, and unfortunately we'll still be facing them. We're facing one of the biggest challenges, the war. We will overcome this because there's no alternative. This is the clash of civilizations. This is the borderline which is drawn between the civilized and non-civilized nations, between the rule of law and lawless countries, between humanitarian and misanthropic nations, between democratic and tyrannical nations. We have to clearly stick to this line. This war unfolds not only in the battlefield, this war unfolds also in the field of diplomacy. Every possible legal levers have to be pulled. We have access to these levers, and we have to utilize the potential of the Armenian diaspora. We have to pull every diplomatic channel, every opportunity presented by the international community to completely, fully impose a defeat on our adversary. Through these actions, the aggressor Azerbaijan has violated several international principles of international law. The UN Charter, the Helsinki Final Act's principles. Prior to that, it had violated the UN Convention on the Prohibition of All Forms of Discrimination when they were spreading anti-Armenian statements, declaring every Armenian to be an enemy. This is a flagrant violation of international law. We have an opportunity today to commence legal processes and procedures against Azerbaijan on the grounds of violation of this convention. This is a matter of survival. This is a matter of the right to life. Azerbaijan has violated the right to life, which is guaranteed by the European Convention of Human Rights. We have the possibility to lodge a complaint in the ECTHR with respect to the violation of the right to life, and I'm certain we shall do this. There are many such violations of international law apparent, but at the same time we have to realize that we shall not limit ourselves to only legal venues to resolve the situation. It is our army, our armed forces that have to bear the burden. Every one of us is the pillar that the Armenian nation leans on. Everyone the nation should use its entire resource to address this challenge before all of us. Our nation has this phenomenon of consolidating at the pivotal time. Our collective conscience come to the forefront. We begin to understand that the nation is homogeneous ocean and we're all drops in it. In these times, we understand that a droplet does not have a conscience of its own. It's a uniform collective national conscience. And when we all perceive, understand, and embrace this collective conscience, there will be no issue that would defy resolution by us. There exists no such issue that the Armenian collective conscience may not address and resolve, and this is one such case. We shall resolve this. The enemy doesn't want us to raise our head beyond survival, which is why every decade, every 5 years, they present an issue of survival to us. They know that whenever we address and resolve the issue of survival for good, we will be able and we shall become the torch bearer of civilization, expanding the horizons of civilization. Perhaps this is what our enemy fears most. Let's grant them this fear once again. Thank you. Bright Armenia faction has the floor once again. The head of the faction, Edmond Marokian, will take the floor.
Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Mr. Prime Minister, Honorable Parliament, indeed, we are all ready to die, but I think now is time to kill those who attack us. We are not to die. We are to live. And we are to solve this problem and not to leave it up to our children. With this war, we've got to solve this issue for good. We cannot stop again and step back and see where each side stopped and then to negotiate and say, oh, you have 10 extra positions and we've lost 10 positions, or we made some progress and you step back and let's talk again. No, I think we have lost whatever we could have lost. For years we've said, let's maintain fragile peace. As long as we're negotiating, as long as we're in a different world. And now we are in a different world, Mr. Prime Minister. We are in the world of the strong. And the world is looking to see how much success which side will have. And the world will take this, will come and say, well, look, you're the stronger one, and so you have that, and we take note of what you have achieved. It can take 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, but people are waiting for that. And I wouldn't like, in the context of this war in the future, to have some discussions about us possibly, we could have done this, we were waiting for the order. No, Mr. Prime Minister, today from 4 p.m., when the martial law took effect, under the current constitution, you have undertaken also the mission of the Supreme General Commander. So give complete orders to advance, and we shall all advance. If we leave this story half finished, we will be bleeding. We've been bleeding for over 25 years. We're bleeding on a daily basis. Better bleed once, but solve this issue for good. What about the world? Well, from 8 a.m. we're here. We woke up 8 a.m. We've sent letters to the whole world, Mr. Prime Minister. We did it in June during the war. During the war in April, we sent them the pictures of our beheaded soldiers. We will be doing it. We will be sending pictures, but this is not that old human rights world. The world has changed. It's a different world. And in this sense, we need to stand up for our rights. Nobody in any way could judge us. We are a nation that have survived a genocide. Today, those same people who committed that genocide want to commit another genocide. 100 years later, we're defending ourselves from genocide. We've created a state to defend ourselves from genocide, and we have a second Armenian state which is facing a threat of genocide. We're all facing a threat of genocide. Either we all stand up and stop the genocide, or we continue to bleed, to lose blood. I want to say that in the diplomatic and political backing is strong, it's firm, we're more united than ever before, but I would like us in the future not to have this talk of whatever topics of lacking this or lacking that, or not doing something right. In the martial law, in 10 days, we have the right to revise the budget. Everything we've got, we've got to move it to the front line, everything to the battlefield, because we have got to solve this issue. We have no right, we cannot afford to lose blood, to bleed. Glory to our army, glory to our people, glory to our diaspora, glory to the Republic of Armenia, and glory to the Republic of Artsakh. My dear compatriots, and I urge you now to move as per the plan to recognize the independence of Artsakh with its consequences. And I just spoke about it a little while ago, because if in that sense we have not to leave anything unfinished. I don't know when again we will have this opportunity. The opportunity has come, the window is open, let's discuss it. We're in a full-scale war, when else can we do it? The discussion today has been launched with all of us. If we were thinking in the past, and I'm going to repeat myself, but I think we no longer have anything to. We cannot afford to step back. We cannot afford retreat. In the course of our history, we retreated as far as we could. We can no further afford retreat. We have to advance, and we have to solve this problem and not to leave it to our children. Glory to the Republic of Armenia, and glory to our armed forces. Glory to the heroes. Thank you.
Prosperous Armenia faction, Madam Naira Zorabian first. Thank you, dear compatriots, dear colleagues. This is a war. Azerbaijan is using all 300 and more high caliber salvo fire systems under its disposal. I agree with the assessment by our colleagues. There is no room to go back. We are all ready to perish for Artsakh and for Armenia, but I believe that we'll have to live to survive for Artsakh and for Armenia. Each one of us, wherever we belong, should do what we have to do. As the head of the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Public Issues, I have already appealed to all European structures, the chairman of the PACE, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, European Parliament, all European relevant structures, clearly laying down the situation for them, as well as referring to the impermissible involvement of Turkey. Yes, I'm not satisfied by the flexible diplomatic language of those structures and putting the equality sign between the parties, their constant style. We, the MPs that have worked at the European forums, from this point onwards should present to the international community that yes, maintaining this diplomatic balance through their statements more often than not makes them accomplices in Azerbaijan together with Turkey in its preparation openly for war. They become accomplices to Aliyev. I think it's redundant to discuss here the issue of whether their political elite is adequate, and it's redundant to hope that anytime soon we will have adequate political elite in Azerbaijan or Turkey. They have poisoned their societies with venom. They're feeding their children from preschool on with poison, and it would be redundant to hope that they will have reasonable elite anytime soon with whom you can sit down and negotiate peace. Let's acknowledge that this has been something that we've been deceiving ourselves with. Yes, for 13 years I've been a member of the parliament. 13 years we've been telling ourselves, let's stop and not discuss the issue of recognition of Artsakh by Armenia. Let us defer the issue of a military political alliance between Armenia and Artsakh, because this will exacerbate the situation. Let's agree war is raging as we speak. We do not know what shall transpire an hour from now. We do not know what shall transpire tomorrow. Azerbaijan has violated, it has spat on every international treaty, the conventions that it has signed itself about not unleashing aggression on civilian population and civilian infrastructure. What else Azerbaijan has to do in order for us to keep respecting the position of the international community? They've done whatever they could, and they shall continue in the same way. As a representative of our parliament, I propose to consider launched as of this moment in time the process of recognition of Artsakh. This is not going against the international community. This is not undermining the peaceful negotiation process. Yes, I agree. This is the time of the strong in this world. We have been walking the corridors of European powers with these files in our arms, asking for compassion, asking for understanding. enough of that. We're dealing with an enemy with whom speaking the language of peace, in my opinion, in our opinion, is no longer possible. They do not comprehend this language, as simple as that. I propose the Prosperous Armenia suggests, and our political council has made a statement to the same effect, and it's very important for us to be united. If we try to entrench ourselves in our own political agendas today, each one of us will pour water to the mill of Azerbaijan through that. Let's put everything aside. Today we have one enemy. It's the Azerbaijan in unison with Turkey. And the international community has to come up with a clear assessment of Turkey's direct involvement in this process. This is our opinion of Prosperous Armenia. The discussion of the issue of independence of Artsakh must be deemed as having commenced. And we have to continually, regularly, periodically, every minute, present to the international community as to what's transpiring every moment in Artsakh and how Azerbaijan is spitting in the face of international law every second as we speak. Thank you. On behalf of the faction of Prosperous Armenia, Mikhail Melkonyan will also take the floor. Dear colleagues, at 7:15 a.m. the aggression was unleashed. Did we expect that? Yes, we were expecting that every day. Shall we expect it hereafter? Yes, of course we shall. It was mentioned here that we should come up with the common unified fist. Yes, there is no Armenian who is not ready to sacrifice, to commit feats of courage. It may well be worth that, but we shall move ahead. We have to find a solution to this issue as follows. What do we claim? We've been totally claiming that there was a close discussion held here with respect to the April events of 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Shavash Kocharian was here, and our faction raised the question, and other factions as well. Is it not the time to conclude the multi-political alliance with Artsakh? He said the draft is ready, it's on standby, life will show if this aggression continues. We would do that by all means, and that's where it stayed. Of course, we have to do everything in the international platforms, but are they the ones to resolve the issue of Artsakh? It's us who have to resolve it. We rely on the entire Armenian nation, but some MP that has to write up something positive out of Europe, that is a plus, of course. But I am going to the PACE platforms. As soon as someone from Azerbaijan or Armenia takes the floor, most of them leave the hall because they're bored of it. This is a window of opportunity. This is the chance. There are people, high officials, who claim that the resolution of the Artsakh issue is in it being left unresolved. The more unresolved it is, the better. Generations will pass. It will become more strong economically. I disagree with that. I think that concluding a military political alliance would mean that we completely legalize our relations between Armenia and Artsakh, and Armenia becomes a full guarantor of their security in this context, but this will not be effective if we do not commence the process of recognizing the independence of Artsakh. Every argument has to be put on the table, and we have to take this decision, the entire nation. All risks and arguments are known. What would follow? What will Turkey do? They will enter their troops in Azerbaijan. Where are we? Who are we with? We only rely on ourselves and our nation. Don't we have strategic partners? Are we not in certain alliances? Yes, of course we are. All of these is not as unipolar as for us to be tread very cautiously, weighing down the risks and aspects. In the wake of the April war, I was thinking, when would the next aggression present itself? We waited for 4 years. There were annual casualties, 60, 70 every year, who fell to sniper fire. Will this continue endlessly, end like the 4-day war and resurface in a couple of months? Maybe in winter it may be toned down, but we are always on alert, on standby. And this argument that we have to resolve this for good, the only solution could be through the formation of the military political alliance, the consolidation of the entire potential. I wouldn't like to talk about the resources here. Our friends are sitting here. They know very well that in the early 90s, the 3.5 million strong Armenia defeated 7 million strong Azerbaijan. There were defeatist positions back then as well. Armenia should become a financial center, a center for treating and curing AIDS. All of that was futile aspirations, but Armenia still won. It's about time now for us to truly consolidate, and the Supreme Military Commander should already issue exercise his full function and issue those commands. I think that the issue of recognizing the independence of Artsakh is something that the entire nation has to resolve. Let's commence the process in camera. Let's weigh all the risks, all the arguments, and go ahead with this. As for, and what I'm saying is what my colleague also supports, seconds the motion. This is the position of the prosperous Armenia. We should launch the process of recognizing the independence of Artsakh, but people may object. How would the Minsk process go? We are of a very high opinion of the Minsk process, but we have to come up with a sober assessment of the effectiveness of the Minsk process. Myself, as a representative of a political faction, may also consider certain factors as to what was the effectiveness of this group. We are at a watershed. In the newly independent history of Armenia, there were 2 or 3 incidents like this. If we are overcautious today and now, we may incur more losses hereafter. I think we have a great historical mission. We may perish through committing feats of courage. On behalf of my STEP faction, Lilit Makons, the head of the faction, will take the floor.
Honorable Supreme General, Commander, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, honorable colleagues, dear compatriots, this morning the opponent launched an air and ground attack on Artsakh along the whole line of contact. Azerbaijan's recent aggressive rhetoric, large-scale military exercises, refusal of the monitoring mechanisms proposed by the OSCE bore obvious testament to the fact that all of this was a huge-scale, pre-planned provocation, which directly jeopardizes regional peace and security. Targeting of civilian settlements and infrastructure. In July, during the demonstrations in Baku, the chanting "Death to the Armenians," the official threat to shell the Metsamor nuclear power plant are obvious facts, showing why we Armenians need to talk about the existential right, the right to live, and the ethnic hatred of the Armenians by Azerbaijanis. The July fighting on Armenia's state border in this context shows that for Azerbaijan, this is not just a desperate attempt to maintain Ilham Aliyev's dictatorial power, but a hate-based lethal aggression against the whole Armenian nation with an attempt at ethnic annihilation. Our response is straightforward. Any attempt to solve the Artsakh issue by military means will face a proportionate response by the Armenian people. Dear women and mothers, I address you with an appeal for brevity. If necessary, we shall be by the side of our soldiers at the front line. More than once in history, we have shown that we are resilient and we're ready to defend our homeland and to be victorious. Dear colleagues, as right now, the international community and international colleagues and partners are watching us carefully, I will, with your permission, switch to English.
As far as international community is closely watching the developments over Nagorno-Karabakh, I will deliver another speech in English, addressing it to the international community. In a well-planned and coordinated Azerbaijani offensive against Nagorno-Karabakh early Sunday morning, weeks and months of mounting tension has manifested into outright fighting, with a serious potential for expanded combat operations that would surpass the April 2016 fighting, which we call four-day war. And while the situation is grim, with little sign of de-escalation, the threat environment is heightened by an even more assertive Turkish posture, which not only encourages Azerbaijan, but also complicates the necessity for a return to diplomacy of a force of arms. After months of bellicose threats and aggressive discourse from Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, in the early morning hours of Sunday, September 27th, the Azerbaijani armed forces launched a coordinated military offensive targeting military positions and civilian areas in Nagorno-Karabakh. This sudden offensive opened with a preliminary massive artillery and rocket barrages that was then followed by an assault on the areas along the line of contact between Karabakh and Azerbaijan that involved the use of armored units in support of an infantry ground assault that was bolstered by the deployment of over 24 UAVs or military-grade drones. After inflicting the initial damage and casualties in the surprise attack at dawn, later in the morning, Karabakh defensive units were able to repulse the offensive, destroying at least 3 Azerbaijani tanks, armored personnel carriers, and downing several weaponized attack UAVs. Later reports from the Armenian Ministry of Defense, which also provided video documentation of the destroyed tanks, further claimed the loss and destruction of a total of 10 Azerbaijani tanks, 15 UAVs, and most notably, the downing of 4 combat helicopters. Despite the shared threat from the global public health crisis over the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic, Azerbaijan chose this especially vulnerable time to attack. This is not an isolated incident, however, as this new offensive follows a similar attack in July, now seen as part of a more pronounced pattern of using the military forces of arms to attempt to impose a resolution to the Karabakh conflict by force rather than through diplomatic negotiations. And in this context, Azerbaijan has only revealed that it now stands apart as the primary threat to regional security and stability in the wider South Caucasus. Moreover, the coordination and logistical preparation necessary to conduct this latest offensive by Azerbaijan only demonstrates that this latest round of fighting was a calculated and planned act of aggression. Beyond the surprise nature of the attack, Azerbaijan's targeting of civilian areas and population centers in Karabakh also demonstrates their flagrant disregard for the standards and norms of international law, while raising new concerns over possible war crimes and other abuses by the Azerbaijani regime. And although Armenia has emerged as a fully respected and legitimate democracy, the nature of the regime in Azerbaijan, whose political legitimacy is founded not on free and fair elections, but is derived from family tradition and genetics, with power passing from father to son through the rule of the Aliyev dynasty. An interesting and undeniable aspect to this latest Azerbaijan attack is the fact that each and every modern Azerbaijani leader, up until current President Ilham Aliyev, has either come to power or fallen from power solely due to events on the Karabakh battlefield. This only shows that by resorting to force and resuming war is a risky gambit for the Aliyev family dynasty in Baku. Thus, despite years of commitment to diplomacy and concern for peace talks, Armenia and Karabakh now stand alone, with no partner for peace and little hope for sincere or serious negotiations with Azerbaijan. Thus, the imperative now is from a back-to-basics diplomacy, focused more on preventing renewed hostilities and pressuring Azerbaijan as the only part to the conflict that threatens and undermines a diplomatic resolution to the Karabakh conflict. Thank you. Շնորհակալություն.
On behalf of the Meister faction, Sassoon Mikaelian will speak as well. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, Honorable Presidency, dear friends. Before my statement, I would like to respond to a question posed by my colleagues that it is time to have a referendum on Artsakh joining Armenia. This war is that referendum. Our victory would be that referendum. There is no need for a referendum. Thank you. As we all know, this morning at 7:15 a.m., the Azerbaijani forces launched a full-scale offensive along the whole line of contact with the Republic of Artsakh. Bear in mind, please, that shelling was not attacking the army positions. It was also targeting the civilian population. This handwriting is similar to what the Azerbaijanis did in the 1990s when they wanted to displace the population of Artsakh from their cradle. It's that same hallmark of Azerbaijan with which it wants to take that step. It wants to clean Artsakh of the Artsakh people. It's not going to happen. And I will draw some parallels with the previous war. I want all of us to comprehend that the previous war too was imposed on us, like the current one is imposed on us. The previous war was imposed on us. It was unequal in terms of number of people. Someone said earlier, 7.5 million Azerbaijan's population and 3.5 million Armenia's population. Also in terms of military equipment. And I addressed the population of Azerbaijan. I would like to address the leaders of Azerbaijan. Never expect Armenia to lose. This is our last fight. We will lead it with glory. Mother and child, whole nation will stand up and will come out victorious, come out triumphant. In a war in which nobody imagined we would win, we did win. And I want all of us to understand this is a grave war. We need, in unity, cohesively, to withstand and to prevail. And I urge the population of Armenia, the Republic of Armenia, all the parties, my fighting friends, my army friends, and all those who have different views to come together, to mobilize for the survival of our nation, for our struggle and for our war and our victory. Never let the people of Azerbaijan think. They know all too well that when Armenians come together, historically Armenians never lose. And I want to address our people. In a way, it's natural that the side that goes on an offensive has an advantage. If we may have conceded territories, nobody should fall into despair or panic. My assessment now is that we stand firm on our borders. Armenian soldiers stand firm and solid on ground, because in a whole offensive there will be some concessions of positions, because they are on the offensive. They launched the offensive, so they have that advantage. If they didn't realize, if they didn't think that they are strong or prepared, they would not attack. We lost back then, we lost Martakert. We then conquered it back. We got it back after a year. Remember what Vazgen Sargsyan said to the martyrs. We had people who were consciously walking to martyrdom. We consciously walked to sacrifice for the Republic of Armenia, for the land of Artsakh, for the future of our people. Back then, me and people of my age, my peers, went there to win for our children. Today, I stand here, many people like me stand here for our grandchildren and for our children to have a free country. I stand here for Komitas, Arabo, and Sevada, my grandchildren, and many people stand for their grandchildren. And I want all of us to understand this war was unleashed by the people of Azerbaijan, and they paved the way to our eventual and final victory. We will win this, and this will be a final victory, and this war will provide solution to all those questions. My appeal to you, my dear compatriots, is to be united, and once again to be united. I have seen this in Martakert. When you lose everything, you cannot engage in politics. When you lose territory, you cannot start a new life in that territory. Today we must understand, as the Prime Minister said, we have not an inch of land to concede. This is indeed Turkey pursuing its goal, instrumentalizing Azerbaijan. If we do not face this war, we will subject to yet another genocide. We have to understand and we have to comprehend. And the international community's opinion is up to the diplomats to deal with. The winner is the one who ends up smiling. May the diplomats do their job. But we know that so many times Azerbaijan has ignored the opinion of the international community. So all we need to do today is to win. And that victory will solve all these issues that our friends, our opposition friends, have raised here. Dear compatriots, honorable audience, and I, as somebody who was born in the Soviet era, I want to say this in Russian like Makun said it in English. Победа за нами. Victory is ours. Guys, I beg your pardon. And as a leader of an entity that from 1996 has had a fighting flag, and this is a military structure, the Yergrapa Union of Volunteers stands ready. I got the news at 7:45 a.m. I got a phone call from Karabakh at 8 a.m. I ordered all the regional structures and the units, as you know. We have all around Armenia 76 regional and territorial units, and today they are waiting for the very first order to come. And I issued the order that those people who
տարիքային առումով այն անձինք, որոնք արդեն չեն համապատասխանում, այսինքն մոբ ռեսուրսի տակ չեն մտնում, կներեք։
Those people whose age puts them beyond the mobilization limit, I've asked them to sign up in a separate list. We stand ready. We have engaged at the end of the previous century. We won that war. We will complete that victory. I've always said during the 4-day war or the Davush events or sabotage attacks, I've always said this. The war began in the 1990s. It hasn't ended yet. without choosing language, this war, that war, the war hasn't ended. And it's our obligation to seal a final victory and to win this war. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mikhailian. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Ararat Mirzoyan, will take the floor now. Honorable Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, National Assembly of the Republic of Armenia, the Armenian people, in the Republic of Armenia, in the Republic of Artsakh and in diaspora, dear brethren and sisters from ethnic minorities living and fighting side by side with us, a war has been declared against us. Large-scale, cruel war where the enemy does not really want to defeat us. They want to eliminate us. The Republic of Azerbaijan, notwithstanding its reassurances at various international platforms, does not wish to include the Armenians of Karabakh in the Republic of Azerbaijan and grant them citizenship with all the rights and duties that emanate from that. They want Artsakh without the Armenians of Artsakh, and this is unquestionable. Failing that, there would not be the total preach of Armenophobia in Azerbaijan for many years. From school textbooks, from kindergartens, all the way to the media, where the Armenians are declared to be the enemy and presented as the enemy. Azerbaijan would not have threatened to destroy the nuclear power plant, to occupy Yerevan. They wouldn't have axed the sleeping Armenian officer Gurgen Markaryan. They would not have cut off the ears of a dead old Armenian man in Talish. A war has been declared against us where the objective of the enemy is the physical destruction, the death of each and every one of us. Our non-existence is their objective. We have to acknowledge this because this is what our action should be based upon. It's an existential issue for the Armenian nation. And we do not have a choice. A second, third, fourth, or any other alternative do not exist. We have to fight with fire, with the sword, with everything possible and impossible. We have to put up a fight in order to live, in order for our children to live, in order for the Armenian nation to continue its existence on this planet like it has done for millennia. There is nothing new in this situation for us. I repeat, for millennia we've had battles of Sardarabad. And yes, Babylon has been our adversary. Not a single stone left of it. Assyria used to be our enemy. This list could carry on and on. I would like to once again, for all of us, to accept when the nations split on this planet of Earth into individual entities, Armenia was one of the first with its own identity. And if ever this planet would go away, we would be one of the nations left to witness its demise. We were around and we shall continue to persevere, but we have to fight for it. And I repeat, there is no alternative to this. We shall defend our motherland. And we shall impose long-lasting peace on our enemy. I would like us to once again, I do not know whether for good or for not, if necessary we could repeat this every day, to once again assure you from this lectern the freedom of Artsakh, and moreover the physical security of Artsakh, the freedom and independence of the Republic of Armenia, the physical security of Armenia nation are not chips on the negotiating table. And therefore we shall triumph because we can't do anything else, because there is no alternative to this. Distinguished Supreme Commander, on behalf of the factions of the National Assembly, and I also saw some non-parliamentary political parties making similar statements, I would like to assure you of the unity and support of the political landscape of the Republic of Armenia to the armed forces of the Republic of Armenia and its Supreme Commander. Long live the Armenian nation. Let the right hand of our Lord be on our nation, our country, our soldiers. Long live Armenia, long live Artsakh. Concluding statement by Prime Minister Mr. Nikol Pashinyan. Honorable Speaker of the Parliament, Deputy Speakers, dear members of the Parliament, factions, this is the exceptional case when essentially there's not much left for me to say in the concluding statements, for a single reason. The representatives of the parliamentary factions, one after the other, essentially filled in everything that had to be said that was appropriate to be conveyed from this lectern by way of conclusion. This is the most important result of our discussions, and I would like to share with you my pride at the situation that we have now. There is just one nuance that I would like to reflect on. When we talk about the need to live and to die for the motherland, there is no contradiction between these two, because our willingness and readiness to perish for the motherland is expressed in our determination to live. We're not falling, and we're not ready to fall for the sake of death itself. We are ready to die for life. There is no need to die for death. So there is no particular, you don't have to come up with a particular initiative for that. Our enemies could take care of that. What we have to do and what we have to say is important. I would like it to be clear that all the necessary instructions and commands have been issued. We, as the Parliament, in this case, without any divisions into the opposition or the authorities incumbent, had this Parliament been a single entity, incarnate in a single person, whatever instructions and commands it would have issued, rest assured all of that has been done. Please never doubt this for a single second, ever, and don't allow any suspicion to enter your minds or our minds with respect to this. On the other hand, we need to understand that we're dealing here with a well-prepared aggression. This is not a single battle initiative. It's important to understand that. And countering it is not a one-step combination or activity. It's something we have to all understand. We need to understand that, yes, we have incurred casualties. So does the enemy, much more. We've lost military material. The enemy has lost much more military material. And this is a situation in progress. We have to stand steadfast. Yes, like it was mentioned here. Various scenarios have been described as to how we would get to that end. At this point, I cannot say that I exclude or rule out any one of those scenarios, but like we agreed, we shall work on these scenarios in a detached, non-emotional, well-weighted approach, but we will not be scared. We will not recoil. There's no room for it, as it was mentioned here. Had there even been room for it, we have no right to be scared. This is an umpteenth battle in a millennia-old fight. And yes, many issues have to be resolved for good here. And I'm glad that this will, this attitude prevails here. And the National Assembly of the Republic of Armenia comes up with a unified will, and I also welcome the extra-parliamentary political parties' will that was expressed in defense of the Republic of Armenia, in defense of the Republic of Artsakh, and in defense of course, the Armenian army. I welcome the diaspora organizations and individuals who with us with the same intensity work on resolving this issue, this knot. It is not possible to defeat us. It is impossible to defeat us because the victory in the heroic fight for Artsakh, which has gone through losses, which has gone through retreats, which eventually culminated in a triumph. This triumph flows in our veins, it's in our conscience, it's our spine, it's our identity. For this very reason, it is impossible to defeat us. And the discussions today came to reaffirm this once again. I welcome the Parliament of the Republic of Armenia, the political will expressed by the Armenian Parliament to triumph in assuring the rights, the existence and the happiness of the Armenian nation. Long live the Armenian army, long live Armenia, long live Artsakh, long live the victory that we are forging, all of us together, every minute, every second, shoulder to shoulder, mind to mind. Thank you. Honorable Prime Minister, dear Parliament, I would like to inform you that today we've discussed between the three factions the issue of convening an extraordinary session of the Parliament. The agreement has been reached. This session will take place tomorrow, when all the final agreements of texts, drafts and whatnot shall be accomplished. So let's get ready for an extraordinary session tomorrow, and we adjourn this one by this. We will update you on the timing, dear colleagues.